Welcome to episode 252 of the AGEIST Podcast. I'm David Stewart, and as always, I'm here with the amazing Margaret May.
Hello, David. And hey, everyone. Today we are joined by Brian MacKenzie, human performance specialist, breathwork pioneer, and a thoughtful voice on stress, recovery, and what it means to actually be present in your own body.
Most of people's problems could be solved if they moved enough. If you can't walk a minimum of 8,000 steps a day, then don't come to me with your problems, because that is the buy-in. And by the way, no phone, no podcasting, no information being pumped into your ears. Get outside, go for a walk, and learn to work through all the thinking and everything going on through that walk, and keep your mouth shut.
Brian is a former endurance athlete who now works with everyone from pro athletes to everyday folks, famous CEOs, helping them to understand breath, stress, movement. These things all tie into mental clarity and long-term health. And as Brian says, if you've got control of your breath, you've got control of a whole lot of other things. He even convinced me to try walking 2.5 hours a day, which I've been doing. And I'm in hypoxic training, so I can tell you a little bit about that.
Oh, very excited to ask you about that. And I hear you're walking without headphones. You're just raw in the walk.
Just go. Yeah, just go. You can do it.
People that run marathons too, even without headphones. Oh boy, but walking's more bearable. And after our talk with Brian, you'll never think about breathing the same way again.
Later on, we'll be getting into our 3 health and longevity news stories. What do we got this week, Margaret?
For starters, we've got trendy posture-correcting devices, a rise in surfing wave pools. These are getting popularity in tandem with wellness clubs across the country. And after that, it's a connection between matcha and iron absorption.
Oh, I want to find out about that.
Yeah.
Those sound great. Stay tuned in for my chat with Brian after a quick word from our sponsors. I had major knee surgery. I'm focused on healing myself. MitoPure from Timeline is helping me do just that, supporting my mitochondria for better energy and strength. Now in a 0-sugar strawberry gummy. Yum. Get 20% off. That's 20% off at timelinenutrition.com with code AGEIST, A-G-E-I-S-T. Really quick, I want to give a shout out to LMNT, the 0-sugar electrolyte drink mix that's become part of my daily ritual. Whether I'm working out or just powering through the day, it keeps me feeling sharp and hydrated. Try it for yourself. Go to drinkelement.com/ageist and get a free 8-serving sample pack with any purchase. That's drinkelement.com/ageist. You know, I've spent years talking about health, longevity, and optimizing how we live, but here's something we don't talk about enough: what we're cooking with. Most nonstick pans are still loaded with forever chemicals, stuff like Teflon and PFAs that can leach into your food and even the air in your home. Not great. That's why I've switched to Our Place. Their cookware is completely toxin-free, high-performance, and ridiculously easy to clean. Their 4-piece cookware set replaces an entire cluttered stack of pots and pans, saving space and saving you $150 when you bundle. Plus, it comes in their signature gorgeous colors. I have the cast iron always pan in sage green, and it is beautiful. Upgrade your kitchen and cook with confidence. Head to from ourplace.com/ageist and use code AGEIST for 10% off site-wide. With a 100-day risk-free trial, why wouldn't you try it? Thanks for joining us. Let's give Brian MacKenzie a call right now. Brian, it is an honor. I got to say, I'm really excited about this conversation.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and I am certainly glad you're hyped, David.
Where does this podcast find you today, Brian?
I'm in Southern California. I live in Huntington Beach. My man cave lab is in Fountain Valley, just one town over.
Do you spend time in the water?
Every day.
What do you do?
I surf, body surf, foil, just screw around. I get in the water. The water is a very important reality check for me.
All right. I got to ask, why?
Nature is, it's the great equalizer.
That's right.
Yeah. And when you work with it, and you've done it long enough, it's quite enjoyable. Yet it's still, there's monsters out there. So that reality is always there. However, in body surfing or surfing, I've yet to encounter any animal danger, although I have done some work where I got to go get out of a cage with great white sharks and do some research around that. So that was kind of cool, but that was it wasn't a controlled environment at all. It was a scientific thing. Anyway, it was in the ocean.
I used to live in Venice, California. I used to surf every day, and one of the things I like about it is 100 feet offshore, you are in a full wilderness experience.
Yes. Yeah, it's a different like
Right? A couple of times. All I can say is one of those things goes under your board. I don't know about you. I am out of the water so fast.
I was body surfing the other day and there wasn't many people out. It was fairly big and there were dolphins that were body surfing and then shooting out the back of the wave, but I was the only one out there. And at first when it happens, there's always that startle response, that threat response that kind of immediately happens. You're like, fuck, what is that? And then it's like, oh, it's a dolphin.
We can talk about this all day, but I was going to tell you a story. I had a day like that, like nobody out. I'm out there, I'm aboard. And suddenly a pod of juvenile dolphins decides that I'm sort of a fun thing.
Yeah.
Now, this is I don't know, 200 or 300-pound powerful animal.
Yeah.
And there was like, I don't know, 6 or 8 of them. And it's sort of amazing, but I just thought, I do not want this thing to hit me. It really damaged me.
It's a wild animal.
Yeah.
You're wired up. I'm wired up. There isn't anybody who's not wired up. It takes training to actually get into a mode to be able to connect with those sorts of animals.
All right. Let's get to why we're here today.
Okay.
Breathing. What is it that you do about breathing? And how did you get interested in this?
I integrate kind of breathing is kind of like a second fundamental layer to how people manage physical and mental stress. And I got into it because I made fun of elevation training mask because I've screwed around with altitude and hypoxia for probably 25 years. And so this mask, when I saw it in the package, I'm like, it doesn't change it doesn't change pressure. So it can't change what's going on. I was literally poo-pooing the damn thing without using it, but that didn't mean that it did what it did. But I still was like, fuck it, I'll put it on. So I put this thing on, and as I put it on, and I'm drawing back because I'm kind of slouched over right now. So I strapped this thing on and I went to go draw a breath and I sat up immediately. So I instantly knew that the resistance that the mask was giving me redirected my nervous system on how to organize around my diaphragm. So my spine organized. We talk in movement, many people have talked about how the spine is kind of this epicenter for the core for development. My theory is that it is not the spine, it's actually the diaphragm. And the reason I believe that is that I then went and started digging down deep into what was going on with breathing. I studied a lot on respiratory physiology. I studied a lot on the neurobiology of how breathing works with the brain through the multiple layers. But then coming across some stuff that research has been done, there's this thing called blood stealing that happens with all of us, where at a certain point when you're exercising, blood will divert from the locomotor muscles to the diaphragm because the diaphragm is the diaphragm and intercostals. I shouldn't skip the intercostals because they're just as important as the diaphragm. It's the rib cage that becomes the most important thing to operate. And so when we're limited with our breathing, blood will divert sooner from those locomotor muscles. So this now tells us that if you have mechanical issues, you're going to have problems sooner than other people because you move inefficiently. So that's just a long-winded way of saying that the diaphragm and intercostals are the epicenter of human movement, but it's also basically the epicenter of everything that's going on in terms of how the Krebs cycle, cellular respiration, the brain, how we operate as a whole. It doesn't make breathing the most important thing. It's all important. However, it's driven through ventilation as a whole. So I spent about 12 years dissecting this and coming to these conclusions that I just refined in kind of you know, that quick blip.
When people work with you and you've worked with the whole spectrum of humanity,
Yeah.
when you're working with people, why do they come to you? And what's the work that you do?
I'd say the vast majority of people that are coming to me, at least not in the professional athlete space, the professional athlete space I'll get to, but most people are coming to me to deal with stress. in some capacity. They're not responding to training or life in the way that they really want to. And so I dissect that because breathing is, it's an instantaneous response to stimulus. So there's a change in breathing that'll happen with stress. So people tend to come to me and I run a very thorough diagnostic on ventilation as a whole. So breathing as a whole. I get resting breathing tests. I get emotional reactivity tests done. I get pulmonary assessment done. And then I run a metabolic assessment where I'm looking at gas exchange, ventilation, tidal volume, respiration rate, all of that, VO2 max, all of that. When you talk about professional athletes, largely the vast majority of them are coming to me because they want to improve their VO2 max, regardless of the sport, whether it's an NBA guy or whether it's an NFLer. Like I've worked with Fred Warner, who's a linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going into the second year right now. And he came to me because of what they scored on a low VO2 max, but what we picked up on were some anomalies that were going on at the high end for him. And we've been able to make some changes for him that have been game changing for him and recovery and how he's actually responded to training and actual performance.
Okay. I come to you and I'm a regular 66-year-old guy who's got a couple of jobs.
Yep.
I just want to be a better version of myself. What is the outcome I can expect here?
What is the outcome you're looking for?
Okay.
What aren't you willing to do?
Well,
Let's start there.
there's a lot of that.
Yeah. That's typically the biggest problem. Most of people's problems could be solved if they moved enough.
Oh, if they move enough. Oh, I move a lot. Yeah, that's
So if you move in excess of 150 minutes a day, you're in a good starting point.
150 minutes a day. So that's 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
I hit about 2.
that's
Yeah.
good. Most people in your situation running two businesses want to try and get away with 45 minutes. So they utilize a lot of high intensity work.
Yeah. So walk me through that. So I had knee replacement 10 weeks ago, and today was the first time that I did 4x4 VO2 max training. And I have to tell you, it was profoundly unpleasant,
It
but
should've-
I feel really good right now because I did it.
Those are the after chemicals. Those are the resiliency hormones and neurotransmitters that are taking effect right now.
But I feel, we're talking about breathing the first time in 10 weeks, like full on, right? That felt great. But you're saying it's not so much the intensity, it's the volume that's not enough for people. Do I understand that correctly?
To a degree, yeah. Most of how we're designed to move is at a very low intensity level. The lowest hanging fruit, and this is what I typically will leave at talks, is like if you can't walk a minimum of 8,000 steps a day, then don't come to me with your problems because that is the buy-in. And by the way, no phone, no podcasting, no information being pumped into your ears. Like get outside, go for a walk, get it done, and learn to work through all the thinking and everything going on through that walk and keep your mouth shut.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Why do I want to keep my mouth shut?
The difference between your mouth open and your mouth shut at walking level is a very large difference in how you're utilizing energy as a whole. You essentially are now strictly carbohydrate burning if your mouth is moving. As I'm talking, I'm moving the needle up more towards carbohydrate energy. And that's not a bad thing. And I'm not and like, look, there's oxidative carbohydrate energy, right? Like, however, if I'm over breathing in any sense, which talking is over breathing, I restrict how oxygen gets used. And anything really below moderate exercise with mouth breathing is over breathing. So therefore, you're definitively changing the spectrum on how your fitness is actually getting evolved.
Okay, so we're going to bring it back to me again. I live here on the side of a mountain,
Yeah.
and I live at 6,800 feet. I'm
Mhm.
acclimated to it. as part of my routine in the morning, every morning, I put some BFR bands on my legs. They go on 30 seconds on, 20 seconds off, something like that. And then I go up the mountain. Now, it's not a very steep incline because my knee doesn't really like that. But by the time I get up to where I want to go, it takes me about 25 minutes up. My heart rate's probably mid 140s, something like that. And I'm breathing through my mouth. And then going down for the first 10 minutes or so, I'm probably breathing through my mouth. And then I switch to my nose. And then as we get closer in, I'm okay. Now, in that circumstance, would you encourage me to keep my mouth closed?
Yeah.
Okay. What does that do for me?
Teaches your body to utilize fatty acids. I can tell you right now, you're not as aerobic as you want to be.
No.
At all.
No.
So if you're consistently not as aerobic as you want to be, because this becomes the buffer for stress, because this gets the mitochondria really churning, is aerobic cellular respiration. The Krebs cycle is really cranking at this point. If that's not necessary, then we're using other processes for that. So this is just, it's a very deep thing. However, to kind of dumb it down is you're been working all day, where I'm guessing you're talking most of the day, which means your sympathetic nervous system is blunting that response you just had from your 4x4. So you can't avoid this. There is no avoidance of that. Most people I run into are trying to be the exception to the rule of the autonomic nervous system's role with the sympathetic nervous system. And this is called chronic stress. And so when you go and apply a stressor, that stressor has a recovery phase to it, which is where the resiliency hormones come into effect. However, once we go back into a stressed moment, whether that's excitement, anger, frustration, whatever, it doesn't matter, we then onboard more of the stress hormones that then block those resiliency hormones. So we're literally blunting the actual response we're trying to get from something. So there's nothing inherently wrong with how you're going out and walking. It's just the fact that there was no real downside to that.
Help me out here. So we talk a lot about, the recovery is where the good stuff happens.
Mhm.
So what I'm understanding here is normally, I hear 5 minutes, 8 minutes, sort of like ramp down, do a little box breathing, something like that, listen to calming music, everything, try and level down. But what I'm hearing from you is that period needs to be longer.
Sort of. I mean, the box breathing and the breathing stuff can be cool to kind of shift you down real quick. The problem is that most people are just going right back into something in a heightened arousal state versus actually a calm enough state to process what's going on, especially if they're running multiple companies. So learning how to compartmentalize correctly, like in not necessarily correctly, in a way that's actually conducive for recovery. So the ability to let go of things, the ability to shut off, the ability to drop into more parasympathetic activity is the goal. Walking with your mouth shut is highly parasympathetic dominant. Walking with your mouth open is sympathetically dominant.
Okay. So related to this is CO2 tolerance, which
Huh?
is,
Yeah.
right, so how long I can hold my breath without things happening, or
Well,
hold
that's
my breath and
yeah.
walk
Yeah.
without. How is that related to what we're talking about here?
So the more you're talking, the more your mouth breathing, the more you're diminishing CO2 content in the blood. And that's perfectly fine for short periods of time. In fact, going and doing talks, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. But it's getting back to regulating that, because the system will actually make adjustments to counterbalance that. Largely the kidneys will inevitably make some adjustments for that. However, when we consistently do that, we're typically in a heightened arousal state. So my nervous system is running up, right? So I'm running hot. So my HRV kind of runs downward, right? All right. So when I lower those CO2 levels, I am lowering the main driver for why I take a breath, which is CO2. So in the brain stem, the respiration centers are set up to largely detect CO2 through chemoreception. That also ties into the limbic system, which is where the amygdala is housed, which is a modulator of CO2 as well. So things that like I can get really quickly aroused or threat or I can turn into a threat, deals, people coming, doing shady, whatever, like anything, a bear coming out, the dolphins, whatever, like that can then come on quicker. So my sensitivities, when my nervous system is running hot, now become diminished to CO2. So when normal ranges of CO2 start to come up, my respiration rate starts to go up higher. So I tend to overbreathe more, which means I probably don't sleep as well as I could, which means I probably mouth breathe when I sleep, which means I might snore when I sleep, which means I might have sleep apnea, which is more or less a mitochondrial problem. So all of this inevitably goes back to the mitochondria, which tend to be, the epicenter for all of this stuff and telling us where and how health is functioning. However, I really do believe that that works itself out once we go at the mind in a way that really starts to look at how I'm kind of going about what it is I really want to do. And typically with what functioning in this world is about doing more than I'm actually capable of actually doing well, is that I can't do enough. And therein lies the problem. And so that's easily detectable through how you breathe. So I let clients know through a very large process, here's how you're managing stress. Some of them, most of them are open to it. A lot of them don't take it real well.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Brian after a message from the sponsors that bring you this show. Today's show is also brought to you by Timeline. I want to talk to you about something that could change the way you think about aging and cellular health. We've all heard the phrase mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell. But what does that really mean to us as we get older? Well, it turns out quite a lot. Mitochondria don't just produce energy, they are central to muscle strength, vitality, and how we age overall. By the time we hit our 30s, these little powerhouses start to decline. No good. Less energy, slower recovery, aging that you can feel. Yeah, we know what that's like. And I'll tell you, coming off of major knee surgery, I've never been more aware of just how important recovery and strength really are. That's why I've been taking MitoPure. It's a scientifically backed formula that supports mitochondrial health, helping increase muscle strength and energy in as little as 2 months. No extra workouts needed, just real cellular level support. And now, get this, it comes in a zero sugar strawberry gummy. Yum. Same science, same power, now easier to take every day. If you're thinking about trying Timeline, this is your sign. We're offering our listeners 20% off. That's 20% off your first purchase. Just use code AGEIST at checkout at timelinenutrition.com. That's AGEIST, 20% off. More strength, more energy from the inside out.
It's hot out there. And if you're like us, you're chasing sunlight, long hikes, and maybe even a splash in the ocean when you can. But all that fun comes with a hidden cost: hydration. That's where LMNT comes in, LMNT. It's not just about quenching thirst. It's about replacing the essential electrolytes your body actually needs. Plus, good news, my favorite flavor, lemonade salt, is back in stock. It's a salty, sweet crowd pleaser that brings back fond memories, and it keeps me sharp whether I'm on a trail or at my desk. Hydration is one of those simple daily wins that stack up over time. So visit drinkelement.com/ageist and get yourself a free 8-serving sample pack with the purchase of any electrolyte drink mix. That's drinklmnt.com/ageist. Stay salty, stay strong.
So if you were to tell me I'm not managing stress well,
Yeah.
you would detect that by the way my respiration interacts with a stressful moment. Is that right?
Yeah, well, yes, I can tell through CO2 tolerance, through an exhale assessment or breath hold, and then coupling that with, hey, well, how's this guy's pulmonary assessment look? How much air can he actually move? Then I can put you on a metabolic cart and move you through a metabolic assessment that goes from absolutely nothing easy all the way up to your VO2 max currently where you're at. And I see everything in between there. And I see how you're responding to CO2. I see it because when we begin to move more, CO2 is the byproduct of higher energy rate. Okay. So that going up, that is the direct response to breathing when we move. So I get to see all of that and I can see how you respond. So there's no hiding. It's just, here's what it is. And it's not, you don't respond to stress well. It's, oh, we've got plenty of low hanging fruit. We've got stuff to work with. There's a lot of huge opportunities here. Where would you like to start?
Okay, let's assume you've got me, and I can tell you currently my CO2 tolerance, in my view, is terrible. My VO2 max back in pre-surgery was about 48. It's probably half that now because I really haven't moved. So what
Yeah.
would you tell me to do?
Yeah. I'd probably have you walking a lot with your mouth shut to start, get that knee functional, get everything in your system back to normal, get you operational, maybe doing some core exercises that integrate breathing into it, that challenge you from that level. And then once we start to see some decent changes through that, then I'd start implementing some higher intensity work and see where we can, what we get from that. And then, if you were capable of actually doing an assessment with me, to the degree that I run them, we would actually run that and I'd see exactly where those responses change and how they change so that we're actually looking at ventilatory thresholds like, hey, where are his current thresholds at? What do those markers look like? I'd be getting lactate numbers as well, seeing where those are at. I mean, that's another thing I do is I get a resting lactate level from a lot of people, which is a very interesting thing. Yeah, I just had a MBA guy in here who had a resting lactate level of 5.6, which is not good. That tells me there's some very low hanging fruit. That should be at like below 2.0. So it tells me cortisol's much higher than normal, especially for a professional athlete. So we'd look at these things and we'd look at how that works through your day. I'd probably bookend your day with some breathing protocols.
Oh, let's talk about that. I've done various, like box breathing. I've got this app on my phone called State. Sometimes I do that.
That was
But
originally my
yeah,
app. Yeah.
it's
That is my work.
okay. Amazing. Yeah, just personal experience with it when it says like, after I've had a workout, recover, I have to keep turning it down. It's like too hard, too hard, too hard.
Yeah.
Can't. Need to breathe now. So this is what you're dealing with here. What kind of breathing exercises do you suggest to people to sort of get them on the road here?
That's typically based off of how they score on an emotional reactivity kind of questionnaire. I've found that not everybody responds to the same breathing protocols in the same way. I had two guys the other week who came in, similar protocol where they were doing a breath hold to the first strong urge to breathe. One of them, I was having do 2 minutes of calm breathing between each breath hold for like 5 or 6 rounds. The other one, I was having breathe as many breaths as he could in 10 seconds and then hold his breath. So that one guy is very sympathetically dominant. The other guy is not. And so the other guy could use a bit of charging up, but they both could use some development towards CO2 tolerance and getting comfortable with higher levels of CO2 in the blood, in the system. And so largely that's what the breathing is doing. I mean, if you go back to when we were kids, David, you'll remember what people did for panic attacks. They gave them a paper bag and you
Oh
breathe
yeah.
and
Right.
yeah, you're just rebreathing CO2. They
Right.
utilize a number of things like that. That's all slow controlled breathing really is doing, except for the fact like you might be sitting in a good position with, upright and really working on your posture and things like that, which is great. However, I've found that people who tend to spend a lot of time doing breath work, like in yoga, et cetera, don't do real well in high stress situations. And so, there's give and take with all of this stuff. However, it's really like, hey, what happens when we are at rest? What happens when we're not at rest moderately? And then what happens when we're really working hard? And I kind of meld that and slowly and chip away with that. So figuring out the right breathing protocol. It's
Mm.
not breath holding. It might be some box breathing for you to start you off if you enjoy that. However, getting you to shut your mouth and go for a walk is going to build your CO2 tolerance.
What if I shut my mouth and I walk on a treadmill in a gym? Does it do anything for me?
Yeah, sure. It's not as good as getting outside. That's for sure.
Okay. So I'm a ski racer. I'm not very good, but I do it.
Yeah.
I started doing it at age 64. Like, why?
Nice.
I mean, most people start this at like age 5,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I'm 60 years too late, so
Yeah.
whatever. One of the things that one has to deal with is this intersection of you need to be somewhat stimulated, but not overstimulated, right? You're looking at something down the hill and you're like, okay, I got to do this. I'm going to do this. And that sort of right balance. And then while you're doing it, being able to keep yourself in that mode. So I'm guessing that's a lot of what you train people to do. I'm going to get off of me for a minute. So favorite subject. So if you, just being honest,
Could be.
if one of the things that I read, and I'm going to paraphrase again, we mentioned this earlier before the talk, is I read through some of your work, and essentially feelings are not facts. That you may, your brain may tell you something, but this is not necessarily true. Tell me a little bit about what you mean by that.
Yeah. Most of us confuse, myself included sometimes, even though I'm working on this, most of us confuse our feelings with what we really think. So we say a lot of the language that comes out of our mouths and the language, the dialogue underneath everything it's rooted in this dysfunctional process of trying to protect ourselves or, the simple way of explaining this really is we're kind of these adult children that have never really dealt with what really we were protecting ourselves from as kids. That doesn't mean we need to go back to our childhood and really work through that. It's just really understanding the process of social anxiety, whatever, or what I think about this situation. And I'll use this as a very simple analogy or situation. If I am in the kitchen cooking and I accidentally put my hand on the burner and my hand gets burnt and I pull away and go, damn it. And I yell and I get pissed off. We confuse that with I felt like I felt the burn, and that's what I felt was the reaction to that. No, that's what I think, because I could have actually burnt my hand and gone, oh man, that was not, I didn't see that. It's too bad, because there's two very different reactions that have occurred. And there's 100 reactions that could have occurred. It's like being in your car. Here's another situation. I'm driving down the road. You used to live in Southern California. You're driving in LA and somebody cuts in front of you and you get pissed off about it. I used to drive around like this. Screw that guy. I'm going after him. I'm going to cut in front of him. I'm racing for red lights everywhere I go. I don't do that anymore, but I catch myself attempting to get into that mode a lot. And what it is it's this defense strategy that I've got going on, or we have going on inside us, that's really centered around how I think. And how I think dictates how I feel. And so we're confused what we feel. Like, I feel hurt. Okay. Is there another way to perceive that? Yeah, there could be. Then it's not how you feel, it's how you think. Because if you thought about this, you'd really get down to the root of what's going on and be able to navigate, not take something probably most likely personally, and be able to move through that and let go of it and move on. Unfortunately, the world's trying to get us all to fit into the kind of this codependent narrative of like, I'm not good enough, so therefore I'm going to help as many people as I can instead of myself. And that doesn't mean don't help other people, by the way, at all. But we're in this really convoluted world of thinking we know what we feel, but we don't. And it's really mixed up. So, that's why feelings don't matter. Feelings largely don't matter. It's really what I think.
I've just been thinking through this conversation as you mentioned earlier. If I'm mouth breathing, I'm using carbohydrate. Is there a linkage between poor breathing and weight gain?
I wouldn't say that. I would say weight gain comes with the consequence of overbreathing. It's interesting because, like I talked about the sympathetic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system, and it's like, it's not just it's not a one-way street. So I can go into a threat situation like, we're in the water and there's a dolphin and you don't know if it's a dolphin yet, or you are with dolphins and there's a lot of them and you're like, oh shit. Like, you know, that's real. That is really going on, and that's a very normal response, but it's also like, "All right, are they actually doing anything to me?" So that's where the thinking starts to come in. It's like, "Can I really work through that?" And this is where there's sympathetic response. However, if I continue on and I'm like, "Oh shit, oh God," like I start to overbreathe. So if I just sat here and I went, "I'm going to begin to overbreathe," I'm going to create a sympathetic response inside my system without ever even to having to think about anything. My system now, when I go into this overbreathing response, I deplete my system of CO2. My vasculature begins to constrict. So now the blood vessels begin to restrict blood flow to the brain. So then I start to get this kind of like euphoric type feeling. And that feeling is the constriction of blood vessels to the brain. And it's my nervous system's way of saying, hey, if we're going to continue to do this, I'm going to begin to shut down the blood supply going to the brain. And inevitably, if you continue to do this, I'll shut you down enough to where you pass out. And that way you'll stop doing that. So the body, the system is very intelligent in this way. Your brain, your nervous system operates real well, but it's a two-way street. And I can either force things upon it in something like that's automatic, like breathing, so I can take it over with my prefrontal cortex, or I could leave it alone to the devices of what's going on in my brain, my mind, and everything's going to respond to that. But clearly having a path to think about things, this is where breathing can come in, is I could actually get a hold of my breathing if I'm having a high response to something and slow it down. And how well I can slow it down or how quickly I can slow it down can bring on more parasympathetic tone to give me an opportunity to logically work through what might be going on and really look at the emotion of what's going on. And I'm stealing this from Eckhart Tolle. In a healthy organism, an emotion is a short-lived response. In an unhealthy one, this is not Eckhart Tolle, this is me. In an unhealthy organism, an emotion is a long-lived response. Good, bad, or whatever. Doesn't matter if it's excitement. Excitement's a drug. And I've been better off controlling excitement than I have chasing excitement, especially in business and work.
I have so many questions for you.
Yeah.
So Wim Hof is doing, this sort of back and forth between hyper and hypo,
Yep.
and then he brings in the cold. So when I do the hyper, then everything feels sort of tingly,
Yeah.
and then I exhale and I try and hold, and then I do this for some comparatively short amount of time before I have to give up. Tell me, like, is there benefit to this?
There can be small benefits to it. It's a very potent methodology, and I grabbed onto this very early on, 10 years ago. And it can be a very potent tool. However, most people that I've found, myself included, who gravitate towards it and want to do a lot of it are failing to understand what it's really doing. And it is that it's bringing on that high sympathetic tone and a lot of the biochemical changes that come with that. And that tingling sensation that you're feeling is not exactly a healthy response. Any respiratory physiologist would tell you stop doing that. So that doesn't mean you necessarily need to, because there's been some very cool things that have happened to people, but there's also been things where people have had heart attacks or died in using things like this because they didn't totally understand what it was they were doing. And that's the dangers in applying a lot of things that we don't quite understand yet, that have been touted as kind of healing things. The only healing thing you've got is this whole thing, and you don't need to really manipulate it too much. It needs to just move a lot, and it needs to not take too much personally and be able to love and enjoy life for life's purposes, which is living life and being a part of life. So I'm not the biggest fan of hyperventilation techniques. However, I will use them from time to time in short duration.
I once had an experience, I think it's called holotropic breathing,
Yep.
which ended in like a psychedelic experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's basically your brain being tricked into dying.
All right. Well, I'm glad it was a trick. We didn't go to full Monty on that one.
Yeah.
So, Brian, if I'm walking up my hill here and I
Uh-huh.
find myself, the effort is getting to the point where I must mouth breathe. I have two choices. I can slow down, or stop, pause, and then continue to keep my mouth closed and walk at a pace where I'm at the edge of needing to, or what I perceive. I mean, it's probably not true, or do I continue to up the intensity and then I go into mouth breathing?
I mean, it's about what you want. Like, actually, it's more about what you don't want. What do you not want? That's actually the path to freedom, in my estimation, is not doing the things we don't want to do. But that requires a lot more unpacking, especially here. So, the reality is like, well, what do you want to get out of this? Do you want to actually respond to stress better? Do you want to respond more effectively? Or do you want to continue to do the things you're doing?
Duh.
Well, I mean, a lot of people would say both, but I'd say, well, you can't have both.
We'll get right back into the conversation after a word from our sponsors.
Today's show is also brought to you by Our Place. I recently swapped out my old toxic kitchenware for Our Place's and couldn't be more satisfied. Not only are Our Place's pans and appliances beautifully crafted with a range of fun colors, they are also made without toxins and chemicals. We talk a lot about health and wellness on this show. One of the main things to do is remove toxins from your life. If you make it a priority to eat healthy food, make it a priority not to cook on unhealthy pans full of forever chemicals. Our Place has completely upped my kitchen game, along with many others. Just look at their 75,000 five-star reviews. Go to FromOurPlace.com, that's FROMOURPLACE.com, and enter the code AGEIST at checkout. You get 10% off site-wide. That's FromOurPlace.com, code AGEIST, and get this, Our Place offers a 100-day trial with free shipping and returns. Check it out and get those toxins out of your kitchen today.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that idea of adaptability, because that's
Yeah.
what we're talking about here. I'm 66. This physiological adaptability, is there a limit on this? Does it sort of gradate down? Like, can I not be adaptable in the same way I wanted to 20? How are you finding that?
I mean, the older we get, the more you have to move in order to get what you had when you were younger. So there is no way around that. That is fact. So if I want to deadlift 400 pounds at 50, it's going to require more than it did at 30 or 40. However, if I have deadlifted 400 pounds since I was in my 30s, it probably isn't going to require too much to maintain that, right? That said, you know, most people don't want to go and do the things that require that long-term investment, which is moving more. So, and it really is moving more at a lower level. Then it's, well, how do I feel after moving at a lower level? Okay, well then, yeah, if I feel great after walking for 60 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever with my mouth shut, then I'm going to do some harder work later and I'm going to get after it. Okay, I'm going to give myself some time to recover from what I just did, or I'm going to go right into that and hit that and see where my, is there a return on this? What's the recovery like on this? Am I going to do this and then go into a full day of work? Okay, well, what's that look like? Like how does that full day of work come in versus like, hey, how much intensity are we going to deploy? The more intensity that you bring into your game, the more recovery you're going to need. It's not less, it's more. So if I'm going into a full day of work after doing a full block of high intensity work, that's going to require more recovery. So how much movement am I getting in that day? What am I limiting to myself?
We're throwing some different things out here I want to understand. Is movement, walking, is that a form of recovery?
It could be.
Give me all right, I want to recover. How do I walk?
Go for a walk. Easy pace.
Okay. And
Yeah.
when we talk about movement, do I have to do it all in a block, or can I'm going to do 20 minutes now, I'm going to like do a little bit of something else.
I break it up. You can break it up throughout your day.
Okay.
100%.
So I don't have to do the whole thing at once
No.
to get the benefit.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me There's so much. I feel like breath work is just like everybody's like breath work, breath work, breath work. What is it about the breath work that people are talking about that they're getting wrong, that they need to know?
I don't know. It's not necessarily they're getting wrong. I think that people are trying to create another thing that that is this. It's this thing I've got to add in order to improve myself, improve what it is I'm doing, or get better results for what I'm doing. And they're not realizing what it's actually doing is regulating them more. It's actually bringing them down more. Whereas, if you look back at human beings in general and movement and in general, we moved most of the day at a low level, picking up, doing things that were hard from time to time, sat on the ground a lot, chased some things for some long distances. There was a lot to it. However, we don't move anywhere near that, and it's only gotten worse and worse and worse. So for the people who do move a lot, it's typically most of them are just moving at higher intensity than necessary. And they're missing a lot of the stuff that could be had by having a lot more lower activity and then hitting short bursts of higher intensity with what they were doing. And or really an individualized thing. So I can't just blanket statement a lot of this, but a lot of the people that get into the breathing thing and think the breathing thing is this holy grail, they've not quite understood that it applies into everything. And what I've looked at is that most people get pretty dysfunctional through movement with their breathing, which that's where the low hanging fruit is. To where if I'm going to go train, I'm going to actually apply these principles of breathing in that actual context so that I can actually tackle this there. Where I see a lot of people over breathing is below high intensity work. So they're in moderate and low intensity work and they're over breathing. And this is where we capture a lot of this stuff. But people really don't want to look at it like that. They really want to look at some magic thing they can do outside of that and just go about the thing that they think they really love doing and get their calories in or get their burn in or get their work in versus, yeah, the quality of work that you're doing is a little bit overboard or it's not really getting you what you think it's getting you. So you're missing a lot of those things that could be in there versus like, hey, like where do you break down from nose breathing to mouth breathing? That's a threshold point. Stick there for some time and see what that looks like. And let's get that cleaned up a bit and see what happens when you do go into high intensity stuff and you do mouth breathe now. How much better do you feel or what do you feel like? How does that operate? So it's really identifying where these places are with people so that you can really clean that out. And walking is just the easy way to do it because most people who aren't paying attention to their breathing while they're exercising or doing things, that's where it gets cleaned up in this low intensity stuff. So we just force people to nose breathe while they're walking or at low in moderate intensity. And they end up cleaning up so much. They're like, holy shit, like I feel great now. Like I really feel like I could go forever doing this thing. Yeah. And that's what it should feel like. That's what being more aerobic feels like.
What if I get a walking pad and I put it under my standing desk?
Great. I've got a walking treadmill right here.
One of my buddies is Dr. Mike Roizen. He's head of wellness at the Cleveland Clinic. And
Yeah.
anytime I speak to him, he's got a treadmill under his desk. Yeah.
He's hacking it. He's doing the right thing.
Give me just a sense here. I mean, and we've been talking for a while here, but I want to get a sense of most people aren't, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are like, metabolically, they're challenged. Let's put it that way.
96% of the human population is mitochondrially dysfunctional.
Right. Let's take somebody who's in that 97%. I know I am at the moment.
Well, rightfully, you just had a knee replacement.
I don't know if you've noticed, Brian, I'm not a particularly patient person.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got a PT twice a week. Can we do box jumps now? Can we do box jumps? And they're like, no, dude,
Yeah.
dial it back. But let's take somebody like, how long of an adaptation time are we talking here? Like what you mentioned to me earlier, the adaptation takes longer as we get older. We just need to move more. So say we convince someone to move, I think the number you gave me earlier was 2.5 hours a week. You need to move, is it, think of that right, about 2.5 hours a week?
Yeah. No, about 2.5 hours a day.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. 2.5 hours a day. All right. So that's a time commitment, but maybe, people can can they talk on the phone when they're doing that?
I mean, they can do whatever they want. Is it advised? No.
Okay. Well, I got to do something during this 2.5 hours, talk to my people or something. So if I do this over what period of time, and I'm going to be good about this, I'm going to be a nose breather in some form of, my heart rate like around 100 for 2.5 hours a day. What's my ROI on this, Brian? When do good things start happening to me?
There's a Bruce Lee quote. It's my favorite quote that he has, that all goals apart from the means are an illusion. Becoming anything is a denial of being. We're so wrapped up in wanting a result that we don't have a process to anything. And the process is, I want it now. What am I going to get out of this?
Right, right.
How about you're going to get to know who the fuck you are?
Okay,
And that's the goal.
okay.
That's what 150 minutes a day with you, and not being with your people and not being connected to things and not doing other crap is about you and who you are as a human being and what you really want. And that's where movement comes in, and that's where activity comes in. I don't see anybody. I really like, I go down to the beach almost every day, and I'm in that water, body surfing, screwing around with my wife, and I don't see anybody outside of kids doing that. I know a lot of surfers that surf, but they do it pretty competitively. And I work with some professional surfers. And it's funny because the things I work on with my professional surfers is, how'd you get here? How'd you get here? You got here because you were playing, because you were enjoying something. There was no, now it's about winning. Now you're riding a wave and you're worried about what people on the shore think, who aren't riding the wave, about how you rode that wave. But you signed up for that process. And so you get pissed off when you don't get the score you think you should get. But yet that's the process you signed up for. Where's the learning experience in that? What do you want to get out of this? You want to be like a miserable bastard when you retire, like Michael Jordan? Like, just because Michael Jordan was probably the greatest athlete we've ever seen, which I admire the hell out of it, and I loved watching that and everything. However, I did watch The Last Dance, and that is not a very happy individual. That is a depressed human being. Michael Phelps did a major documentary on HBO about the weight of gold, and I worked with several of those athletes that were in that documentary, all of them depressed, because they forgot about what it's like to play and do the thing that they love. And that's what a lot of people are doing. That's what you're explaining, is like, I got this stuff to do. What's the ROI? What do you mean, what's the ROI? Why does it have to have an ROI? Because you're caught in this game that you actually don't want to be playing, but you're convincing yourself to play this game anyway to avoid the one reality of getting to know yourself and why you don't want to play that game, and you're avoiding the authentic life you could be living. And that's what I teach people, is how to be authentic, because it ain't authentic playing the game.
Okay. So what I'm hearing here, Brian, is that the benefits I get from keeping my mouth closed, not putting my earbuds in, and
Yep.
walking or moving around for 2.5 hours a day
Yep.
is my aerobic base goes up. Okay, we can put a number on that. But I get this other benefit that's greater than that, which is I get to be with David and David's thoughts for this amount of time. And I get to deal with that. Did I get that right?
You don't might, you get to. You're with David all the time. But what I'm getting at is, make the time with yourself about you and understanding that and what you really want to be doing and how you want to be living your life. And if you're never present with that, how can you be living?
You are really fucking with my workouts. I got to tell you.
Well, look, man, I've done all of this. I've been here. I've done that. Everything was about numbers. I'm a human performance guy. I mean, if you look at this place, like technology, it's tracking shit. It's doing that. What I've learned is, I'm using the data to figure out, does this make sense? Does this actually make sense to what I'm talking about now? And it's, lo and behold, the higher the aerobic activity you've got going with yourself, the easier it is to remain in a state when high threat comes on, to chill the fuck out and really understand the bigger picture about what's going on. That is really like, well, do I want to actually be involved in business with this person that I'm getting involved? Like, I'm starting to, are there some red flags going on here? I don't know. If I'm overly excited, I'm going to blow right past that. I let that slide. People who are dating and like, it's like, how many people, how many times did we, when we were younger, just like red flag after red flag? I'll get involved with this person. I'll do that. Yeah. Not anymore.
So I love deadlifts. They're like my favorite. I can't do them right. I can do them very light. And the reason I like them, Brian, is because I get high after I do them. They feel awesome. But in order to like do a thing, like if I'm doing one of those kind of workouts in the gym, little self-confessional here, it's all about AC/DC. That's what I have this on my headphones, and it's like I jack myself up and it's like, pick that thing up. It feels great. But what I understand from you is that the thing here is really about being able to self-regulate that, to be able to put myself into sympathetic, do the lift, and pull myself into parasympathetic on my own. Is that what we're talking about here?
A little bit. Remember Charles Bukowski?
Sure. How's he? I want to hear how he's related to this. Yeah.
Well, based on what you just said, it's something else is hurting you. That's why you need pot, whiskey, or whips, or rubber suits, or screaming music turned so fucking loud you can't think.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
because you don't want to be alone with those thoughts. You don't want to be alone with you.
Exactly.
It's weird because when I started going after this stuff, this transition started to occur with me where it's like I don't actually listen to anything when I'm driving anymore. That was just a natural progression because I get this 15-minute drive home. Sometimes I'm like, I wish it were longer because I just get to be with my thoughts again and me and I don't have to race my car home. In fact, I drive in cruise control most of the time just because it's easier that way. At any rate, it's like I don't race around. I don't race for red lights. I don't like sometimes I catch myself doing these things, but the reality is I don't listen to this stuff. I naturally moved into I stopped listening to a lot of the punk rock, angry music I used to listen to because I'm not angry anymore. Doesn't mean I don't like AC/DC or a lot of the punk rock that I sometimes I'll put it on, but it's like I can't listen to it long. My brother comes into my facility sometimes, like 3 or 4 times out of the week, and he'll put some stuff on that's like and I'm like, can you turn that off?"
So I need the music because I want to overcome the fear of not being able to lift the thing up. That's,
Well, you're convincing yourself of something.
yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
You're convincing yourself of something. It's, I mean, I get it. Don't trust me. I listen to some pretty hard shit.
This
I
is
bet
such a different conversation that I thought we were going to have.
breathing relates to all of it, and it's the easiest thing to kind of go after and get people to go, oh, hey, control that. And then all of a sudden they start to realize, oh, I'm like, I'm more chill. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Isn't it beautiful? You can see this, nobody's ever freaked out looking at a sunset.
Brian, you're a busy guy, and I'm very grateful for all this time.
I'm as busy as I want to be.
Or as busy as you want to be. Well,
I have time for the things that I actually want to do and I'm willing to do.
what I want to do here is I'm expressing my appreciation for this.
I know. I'm just helping you kind of come back to that being alone with David.
We're going to meet and we're going to do some stuff at some point. My knee, I can't do anything right now until my knee gets more or less normal. It's going to be uncomfortable for me. I can
You're
tell.
already doing things right now. You're already climbing and putting your BFR on, and you're mouth breathing, and you're doing things. You're,
Not what
you're
I
just
was 6
you're
months
just
ago.
not where you want to be, which is that's what you going and moving is really about.
That's right. That's right.
I'm not where I want to be. Well, then what's stopping you from being exactly where you're at?
I'm going to leave you with a couple of things. My favorite Nietzsche quote
Mhm.
is greatness. Where are we seeing that today? And the other one is from William James.
Mm.
And he talks about man's fear of their own greatness. A man very rarely, if ever, reaches their full capacity, and it is because they fear their very greatness. And that's what motivates me.
I love it. I'll leave you with this. I don't know if you know who Laird Hamilton is.
I know his wife, Gabby. I don't know Laird.
So I'm very close to them. I've spent a lot of time with them. I was helping get Laird dialed in for when he wanted to go tackle a 100-foot wave. And there was a very big swell that came in North Shore of Kauai, North Shore of Hawaii in general, well over 50 feet. It was like probably like hitting 70 feet. And we geared up, got on the jet skis, and we headed down the river out of Honolulu Bay and waited for the opportunity. We shot out Honolulu Bay, which I don't know if you've ever been to Kauai.
Yeah.
The entirety of Honolulu Bay was closeout sets coming in. It just closed the entire thing out. So we had to really navigate, and we're charging out. And I'm not a big wave surfer, but I'd spent a lot of time with Laird, and we got out, we got ourselves out, and this reef out there called King's Reef was breaking and all this stuff. And it looks like these mountains coming in. I mean, it's absolutely just crazy. Like a level like of scared I've never really been in. The only thing comparable is swimming with great white sharks that really I had experienced. And as soon as we got out, Laird slows down and stops on his ski with his tow partner, Terry. And I slow and stop, pull up to him, and the other tow team pulls up. And he looks at me and he goes, "If you don't want to be here, you need to turn around right now and go back because you're a liability otherwise." And I was like, I get it. I get it. Most people don't get that. Most people are living in a way that they don't understand that they're in situations that they don't really want to be in. And if you don't really want to be there, stop being there. Stop doing the thing. Stop doing the thing. And most of us keep doing the thing, even though we're in this very high threat situation that we don't want to be in. Take the big waves out of it. Take the sharks out of it.
Lives of quiet desperation. Not my game. Brian MacKenzie, you are a mind-blowing human being. And,
Maybe.
well, you are to me, and that's what matters. So I
Thank you.
appreciate this. And I'm going to work on my knee, and I'm going to work on my CO2. I will come and see you, and you can put your machines on me and tell me what's wrong with me. And there's probably a lot, but I'm going to enjoy that.
You hit me up when you're ready.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time today.
You're welcome, David.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
That was a conversation I think we all needed. Our breath. Sometimes, we're just breathing on autopilot, but it can be a really good diagnostic tool for how we're managing stress. And when we are able to manage our breath, that can do wonders for our nervous system. It's such a simple tool that we all have, but most of us don't breathe correctly.
I love the line, most people are trying to be the exception to the rule of their nervous system.
Oh, yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. After my conversation with Brian, as I said earlier, I've taken up a lot of walking and then walking without headphones, just walking and being with myself. That's been interesting. Nothing really profound there. The more profound thing is based on what I learned from Brian in this conversation and hypoxic training. So hypoxic training is the opposite of hyperventilation. So you're building up CO2 in your body and your body is unhappy about that, but you can calibrate that. And I think I mentioned in the conversation, there's an app called State, and I use it every morning for essentially hypoxic breath training. And it's sort of like the wake up thing. And so what you do is you breathe in for a certain amount of time, you hold for a certain amount of time, you exhale for a certain amount of time, hold for an amount of time. And then depending on how hard that is or easy that is, you can say, okay, that was easy, made it harder next time, or, oh my God, I can't do that, make it easier. So I've been doing this now for about a month, and I have much, much better control over my breathing and my ability to tolerate carbon dioxide, which I used to think, well, I'm just like congenitally bad at this. Like I just can't. Other people seem to be able to do this. I can't do it. But the thing is, I've gotten much better at it. So what's the usefulness on that? Well, what happens is, as Brian was saying, if you're exercising, you'll reach a point where in your extremities, they will sense the carbon dioxide building up, and they're going to push all the oxygen, all the hemoglobin to the center part of your body, your lungs and heart and such like that. And then everything else that you're doing the activity with is just becomes sort of useless. They just don't work anymore. So you want to elongate that time. And also this idea of being able to control the breath. If you can control your breath, at least what I found is I have much better control over my reactivity.
Mm. Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. This is something I think about all the time when I'm on a walk or a hike, and then I catch myself. I'm like, oh, I'm only breathing out of my mouth right now.
Right. Right.
This is horrible. And then I'll like try to like mentally be like, all right, we're gonna switch to like breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. But it's so difficult if that is not how you normally breathe day to day. If you're just like mindlessly breathing, then that is gonna be your default. And you have to kind of train to breathe in this new way. So I'm gonna check out the State app. You have my interest peaked here. Cause even like your quality of sleep too,
Oh, yeah.
mouth breathing when sleeping, gosh, like that can people are like into like the mouth tape now,
Yeah.
all that stuff. But yeah, your breathing is just so important. We were talking about Katie Bowman with the importance of your feet last episode and your breath too. It's something so minor that makes such a huge difference. It's literally the foundation of how we're able to move around and do everything that we do. So when we have control over that and we're really mindful and self-aware about it, I think the self-awareness piece that he was talking about was really important when we're able to kind of even tune into our breath and have that self-awareness, and that's reflected out in how we're perceiving the world and how we're like able to be present in the moment. So beyond athletic performance, just like how you're able to show up
Yeah.
in the world around you. Love this conversation with Brian. All right, let's dive into these wellness headlines. What's happening, what's changing, and what matters. First up, the beauty tech mashup alert. Posture. According to an article published by Business Insider, posture improvements are trending as a non-invasive anti-aging tool. A lot of influencers are touting posture correction for firmer jawlines, less puffiness. Lots of brands are launching aesthetic wellness products like face wraps designed to improve alignment during sleep. So it's part beauty, part functional longevity. It is accessible, low drama, no needles required, but definitely how well they work, not sure. I feel like you just have to try it to see. And then surf's up. There's a new space to hang 10. Fit Insider reports that surf parks are riding the wellness club boom. The Atlantic Park Surf, it's a 2.67-acre wave lagoon and lifestyle club that opened in Virginia Beach. It's also the first U.S. park powered by Waveguard & Cove technology. With 35 sites open worldwide and 75 plus in development, the surf park industry will grow 11.5% annually, attaining $3.8 billion by 2028. So the U.S. is heating up with these surf parks. And finally, green tea. For those of us who are not coffee drinkers but still want a little caffeine, maybe matcha is what you gravitate towards, but you got to watch your iron. The New York Post circled back on a piece published in Vogue back in May about the cautions with matcha. While full antioxidants and focus-boosting L-theanine is great, nutritionists warn its tannins can bind to non-heme iron, potentially hampering absorption and leading to iron deficiency, anemia if you're not careful. So the tip here is just to sip matcha between meals and pair it with foods with vitamin C to help your body soak up that non-heme iron. So just aim for 1 cup a day, spaced well. It can give you an opportunity to sip safely and still get those soothing benefits.
Where are we going to start here, Margaret?
Let's start in the middle. I'm feeling we're going to go out of order here. The surf clubs. Would you try it?
Absolutely, 100%. The idea of having a predictable wave, where you want it, when you want it, that's exactly what you want. Like I used to surf. So the big thing about surfing is people think surfing is standing up on a board and riding a wave. That's like 1% of it. The rest of it is paddling and waiting for the wave.
Yeah.
So you can be out there for, there's usually a wave set, depending where you are, like every 8 to 15 minutes. Maybe it's the right wave, maybe it's not. And you can just sit out there for very long periods of time. Nothing happens. So if you're a surfer, this sounds pretty great. Yeah, it's artificial. You're not out in the ocean. Okay, there's a lot of benefits to being in the ocean. But I also like that this seems, because it's a club, there's probably a real social element to it that is different than being out in a surf break. It can be a bit, depending on where you are, they're never really that friendly. It's somewhere between like, I'm going to ignore you and me and my buddies are going to be aggressive with you. So locals only, as they, a lot of places. So I think this is great. More ways for people to get together. exercise, camaraderie, use your body. Why not?
I think it's really cool. When I'm thinking about like how we were kind of simulating nature in this way, like, like the indoor ski parks or the surfing, you think of it being out in like Dubai and the UAE and all those places. So it is really cool to see this is migrating over into the US for the very reasons that you're talking about, that there's more of this like club social aspect. You can really maximize your workout, especially with something that can be more unpredictable like surfing. So any surfers out there, if you try it, write into us and let us know.
Looks awesome. What's next, Margaret?
We'll go up from there. Posture correcting devices.
Okay,
You
so
use them? What are your thoughts?
I just thought like face wrapping during the night. Well, that's a kinky thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Come on, baby, bring out the face wrap. Urgh. Like, I don't know. There's probably some benefit to this. When you started off talking about posture, I thought like posture, like standing up. Your
Yeah, or
body
even
position.
that's like a lot of like there's some sports bras out there even now that have like a posture
Oh, they
correct.
pull your shoulders back. Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
those I'm sure have some benefit if they're fitted correctly. I always think about that too. Like everyone's postures and how it's sitting is different. But the face wrap, that's popped up a few times in my feed that it's like a full, you're like having to get dressed to go to bed. It's like the mouth tape, you're taping like strips with the face wrap. Like you look like you're out of a Twilight Zone episode. But hey, like for some people, like it definitely like it's keeping everything in place. I can imagine it has some type of benefit for even like maybe collagen or just like keeping your skin. Because they use like face wrapping for when you'll get like surgery done to kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
the tissue in place. So I
Yeah.
can imagine that it has a similar effect. It's not going to hurt you, but will it like do as much?
Yeah. I mean, the surgery ones, though, you're wrapped for 2 or 3 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
It's not
You're
like you put it on and take it off. I don't know. I mean, we get into this sort of like escalating the thing last week, like the Liver King stuff. Like, okay, we sort of go from washing and moisturizing to, okay, we're going to massage. And then we just sort of go up this escalator. And all of a sudden we're like the mummy going to bed. All right. Well, if you like that, okay, great. Do it.
Yeah, I think it appeals because it's more of a passive way to kind of help with that. And like anything you can do while you're sleeping,
Yeah.
I feel like appeals to most people. But the posture correction devices and even just like doing movement that's going to improve your posture, that will improve just your
Yeah.
circulation, your fit, like that. I think
Yeah.
is more worthwhile to focus on versus
Yeah.
spending money on a device. And green tea, we'll circle back down to our third one.
Okay.
I feel like people always make
Oh, my
make a
God.
mountain out of a molehill, but it is worthwhile to keep in mind, especially if you're downing like, I don't know, 8 matchas in a day. Like
Well,
everything in moderation.
I mean, and those two like paragons of health science, the New York Post and Vogue magazine. Like,
Yeah.
okay, great. Yeah, I'm gonna get my health tips from the New York Post. How much green tea are we talking about here? I mean, there's an enormous amount of science out there about longevity and green tea. Okay, yeah, maybe it binds to your heme iron if you drink a gallon of it or something. I mean, I don't know. I just find that certain publications, we're not going to name them, the New York Post for one, will sort of oscillate between this like, eat this weird bean, you're going to live 200 years, and if you eat this bean, you're going to die tomorrow. So it's sort of like, well, okay, that was a nice clickbait. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My guess is the tea's fine.
Yeah. The only thing I can imagine is maybe if you are a non-meat eater, that you're not getting iron.
Okay.
When you're vegetarian or vegan, if you're choosing a more plant-based diet, your non-heme iron, you are having to pair it with vitamin C to allow the uptake to happen properly and absorb it. So maybe depending on your diet, this might be something worthwhile to watch. But like you're saying, like if you're eating a varied diet, if you're not solely drinking matcha all the time, this isn't something you really have to worry about. If your diet is varied and you're getting all of these.
If you've been tested and you are anemic and you also find yourself drinking a lot of green tea, these two things may be related, or, ask your doctor.
Really a nutritionist. Nutritionist can answer this question the best.
Yeah. The New York Post, page 6, love it.
Yeah.
Sports pages, love it. Health and medical advice? Nah, how about that?
Yeah, anytime any of these pop up in certain publications, I feel like it's always good to do another search for peer-reviewed studies to be an informed reader.
That's right.
All right, but let's jump into our It's Not Too Late series. Every week, we wanted to share a story that truly embodies what's possible. This is from Sally, who lives in Melbourne, Australia. She has a global performing arts, festival, and business entrepreneurial background. She wrote in and said, I'm 75 and writing another book about a fierce, bold woman heading to Paris for romance and more flings in my life, and I'm discovering the real seduction in continuing reinvention. It's a book, memoir of bold late life reinvention, glamorous, funny, and real. I want to break the cliche that women my age fade into the background. Instead, I show what it looks like to be visible, desirable, and unafraid in my 70s. It's going to be a book I wish I'd read years ago, but also it's ready for the screen. She's thinking Fleabag meets Call My Agent, but set in Paris with a 75-year-old lead who refuses to play nice. I'm excited to read this.
Sounds great. Yeah.
Anytime you're able to create something that you wish you had read when you were younger or at that particular age, I feel like it's a great way to kind of pay it forward and give other people something that you wish you had. So this is awesome.
I love that she wrote the book. It's great.
Seems like she's already gotten her first, maybe second one out there.
Wow. All right. Go Sally. We'd love to hear your story too. Head over to ageist.com/story to read more real life experiences from people in the audience who sent their stories in. We would love to highlight you and whatever you're up to. Please send us your story and we'll read it on air.
Or on the AGEIST website. We've been collecting all these stories and putting them together. So head to ageist.com/story.
That's a wrap this week. And I keep thinking like the mummy face wrap thing. Okay, that's a different kind of wrap. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up for this episode. Big thanks again to Brian MacKenzie for showing us what it's really like to actually breathe.
I'm going to go check out that State app right after we get off. Thanks for joining us. Stay strong, stay vibrant, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Take care now.